Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Thursday, January 9th, the markets are actually closed today out of respect for the late Jimmy Carter. As a result, Anthony Power and I are going to be using today's episode to get caught up on some of the December production results and news stories that came out earlier this week. We've got a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comments section below how you're feeling about the December production results, your outlook on the Bitcoin mining sector as a whole, and of course, remember to submit your Miner Madness 2.0 predictions on one of the two authorized YouTube videos or on our PMA Power Mining Analysis pinned tweet on the corporate Twitter or X account. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, so here we have it, Anthony. Thursday afternoon, just following our DMG interview. It's been a very busy week, a very busy start to 2025 in terms of activity and interviews on the channel. Today's a great opportunity for us to catch up on some production reports and news that have filtered out throughout the week here. So first and foremost, markets are closed today. Bitcoin's down in the $93,000 range. At least we only have Bitcoin price to worry about today, not the miners. Any concerns here, Anthony, or do you think this is just part of the process?
Yeah, it's part of the process. I mean, yes, it's come down from its high of 108,000, but literally 6 weeks ago it was not that far above 70,000. So we're just seeing a bit of Bitcoin volatility. I'm assuming we'll see an uptick. I noticed from a tweet earlier today, I think there was quite a bit of outflows this week from the ETFs, but these red days from ETFs are few and far between. We'll see a whole raft of green. And since the start of the year, I think we're still, from the ETFs, still $1 billion inflows in terms of Bitcoin. So that tells me we've not got too much of a problem at the moment.
Yeah, to be honest, I was kind of expecting the Bitcoin price to gradually float up. I was not expecting another retracement under 100,000 here in the near term. I'll give a shout out to Freedom by 40. He specifically called this to the day based on his technical analysis. One other observation though, Anthony, that I picked up last night, it looks like the US government has at least authorized the sale of a substantial amount of Bitcoin, about $6.5 billion worth of their Silk Road confiscated Bitcoin. Now, details are unclear whether this has already been sold or just cleared to be sold in the future. I've seen both tweets, both versions of this, but regardless, Anthony, it's definitely adding some uncertainty to the market, especially as the incoming Trump administration has already talked about or committed to purchasing Bitcoin for that strategic reserve.
Yeah, no, it is causing uncertainty, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there's 20th is the inauguration day. It'll be disappointing, I suppose, if it is sold before then, but we'll just need to wait and see. This news has just recently come out, so we'll see how quickly it gets action. There's only 11 days left.
Yeah, and at this point, it really does feel like regardless of these short-term pressures, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt we talk about on the channel, the general momentum, the shift is going towards Bitcoin adoption. So whether or not they sell this Bitcoin before, after, during the inauguration, I think it will get gobbled up at some point by the market. So with that being said, not a ton of action with the Bitcoin miners today. The Canadian markets are open, and of course DMG is a Canadian listed company, so make sure you check out that interview. moving on to the main event here, production updates. So we've done our best to report on these as they come out during our interviews. There have been a number of reports that have come out this week. First one we wanted to talk about, actually an interview we held yesterday, was Bitdeer, Anthony. So the tail of the tape in that interview was really about their AI, their HPC, their SEALMINER technology, but a very strong Bitcoin miner nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, if you look at their business model, Bitcoin mining from a self-mining perspective is actually probably quite a small part, probably less than 25% of the business. And you think about they do hosting, they're doing AI, they're building their own machines. They've got a lot of irons in the fire. But from a self-mining perspective, let's focus on that there. They've mined 145 Bitcoin. But the hash rate went up slightly to 8.5. The total amount of power across all their activities at the moment is 895, and it's been that way for most of the last 12 months. They do have this amazing pipeline if you think about what they've got coming out in 2025 and 2026. This year alone, there's another gigawatt of power being energized at three or four of their sites that are coming online, between now and the end of the year. They've got a total of 2.5 gigawatts of power total at the moment. That's one of the biggest pipelines of power from any of the mining companies. When we spoke to Jeff on the podcast, the one thing he did say about the self-mining was the fleet efficiency. So they haven't really, at the moment, invested as much in getting new mining machines. So their fleet efficiency is probably, from the mining companies that we look at, is probably the lowest efficiency or the worst efficiency of the miners is at 32.5 joules a terahash. And when you consider IREN are at 15, that means the machines that IREN are able to mine Bitcoin with less than half the amount of power that the machines at Bitdeer have for the same amount of Bitcoin produced. So it does make a big difference. Power is a massive amount of expense. It can be 40, 50, 60% of of the revenue costs could be just in power alone. We looked at some of the updates out this week at TeraWulf. The Bitcoin mining price at the moment might be 93,000 per coin, but their cost to mine in terms of energy was over 60,000. That's a big part. So when you have efficiency at 30.5, you're going to pay a bit more. But the positive news for them is they're going to be bringing out their own production of mining machines, which are far, far more efficient. We've seen some of the updates where they've been able to achieve 13.5 joules, so that'll bring that really down there. They've got about 3.7 of exahash coming out in the next month or so, and throughout 2025, a significant amount more, potentially up to, close to 30 exahash being added. So, when you look at these sites coming online, they have the sites to house these. They have the miners in production, so they're ticking all those boxes there. In terms of HODL, this is something that they've just started to now let retail investors know that they are hodling miners. And as at the end of December, they had 594 Bitcoin with a valuation of about 55.5. Now, I did see an update, I think it was maybe earlier this week, that had 608 Bitcoin. So it looks like they're starting to hodl most of their daily production. And if you haven't listened to the podcast, listen to the podcast. Jeff will talk through all the financing options going forward. They've been very good at raising capital in 2024. Remember, this mining company was hardly even known 12 months ago. According to Jeff, only one analyst on Wall Street was actually following them. Now they've got undated, they've got 11 analysts, and believe you me, some of the big names out there have got 7 or 8. So Bitdeer with 11 analysts. I think Riot have got somewhere along the same lines of that. But when you think about the market capitalization, they're in that bracket alongside Core Scientific, alongside Riot, alongside CleanSpark. They're in tier one in terms of market capitalization. Not necessarily from a mining perspective because their hash rate is significantly lower, but they've got so much more about the business than some of the other miners have got. And I think this production of their own miners, this is the game changer for Bitdeer.
It certainly is. The other Easter egg we found out yesterday was the pricing, the $15 per terahash. So that was really interesting to find out as well, Anthony.
Yeah, that was a great to hear. I wasn't expecting to hear specifics about pricing. It wasn't one of the questions we asked, so it was great that Jeff was very open and frank about the pricing. That's a similar pricing that some of the big North American public miners have been achieving with Bitmain with the S21s. We saw an update only this week from Bit Digital. That's the day they purchased 921 and other miners have been purchasing around about the $15 when they take some of the discounts allowed into consideration as well. So that's a great price, and I'm sure that Bitdeer, are making a nice margin on that amount there. And let's hope that production fulfills what they're trying to achieve. I mean, I worked out based on their update, they're producing a lot of miners, 7 exahash of miners for sale to customers, and they're producing 35 exahash in total. And I worked out it's just shy of 150,000 machines they need to produce this year. So that's a great amount of production. And I'm sure if they can get that in place and completed, they'll be able to look at maybe improving that. Don't forget, this is year one, at the start of year one in terms of production. And they've got another couple of models to bring out. The A3's in development. The A4 is going to be in development by the end of the year. I was surprised to hear more about the A4 because they're aiming for 5 joules a terahash on that. I mean, 10 joules a terahash now. We're starting to hear a lot more in the market about competitors getting lower than 15 joules. But believe you me, 2 years ago when the XP came out, people were saying that we were gonna flatten off then at the XP efficiency, and we've literally blown through that. And what Bitdeer and what Bitmain are producing now is going to make it even the S21 Pro model sound irrelevant shortly.
Most definitely. Another interesting point you mentioned there in relation to production, Jeff had mentioned nearly 30,000 units are going to be sold externally. So based on that $15 per terahash price, around $100 million of revenue coming into the company. So that was quite the number to be thrown out as well. The other interesting point, Anthony, you mentioned only one analyst was covering Bitdeer at the start of the year. Now they're covered by almost a dozen. Interestingly enough, DMG is covered by only one analyst right now. So that's exactly why you want to watch some of those smaller interviews, those smaller companies, you guys. That's where you really get those big returns before Wall Street and the analysts start to identify these companies. So great information there. Next up, we have Hive. Now, we talk about Bitdeer starting up their HODL program. Hive is another one we want to talk about here. Despite their smaller market cap in comparison to some of the behemoths in the mining space, they've got an impressive HODL, and based on the calculations in front of me, Anthony, in excess of $250 million and just north of 2,800 Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, it's an impressive HODL, and something that Hive have been building over the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not, they haven't done it quickly like some of the miners. They've just been gradually building that HODL up, not spending, generally more than their production. So adding from the production, using some of the production Bitcoin to pay for costs as well, because they're one of these companies that keeps their costs down to as low as minimum as they can be, and the G&A costs reflect that in terms of when you look at G&A comparators as percentages of revenue. Hive are, if they're not the cheapest, they're one of the cheapest, believe you me. So 103 Bitcoin mined in the month. They raised their energized hash rate now. They're over 6 exahash at the moment. They're actually achieving, I think, close to 6.5 exahash during the month. But over the month itself, they had an average operational hash rate of 5.5. Their efficiency they're able to achieve, again, it's getting close to that 20. They're at 22 joules a terahash. That's really, really efficient. Keeps the cost of power down there. But you're right to say the HODL, 2,805 Bitcoin in their HODL. That's got a valuation of 262 million as at the end of December. And looking at today's price, that's pretty much the same place where we are at the moment. About 93,400 was end of December. We're hovering around that 93,000 mark today. So the Bitcoin valuation of these HODLs is about parity with where it was at the end of the month. So But yeah, we know that that 6 hash isn't going to stay there for long. They've got this big implementation going on and the build out in Paraguay. That's going to add another 7 or 8 exahash. I know they're planning for over 15 exahash by the end of the year, and we really want to see them achieve that. As well as this, they're also busy growing their HPC AI business, and they've been, each quarter they've been ramping up the amount of revenue streams from that business itself. I think at the moment now they're getting close to, well, I think they're over 10 million annualized revenue. So in the same ballpark as I think IREN are at the moment, they're probably getting about just under $1 million a month. Hive are in that same position, but Hive have said they want that to grow, I believe, to about 100 million by the end of this year. So that's a big incentive for them to grow that. They've certainly got some sites where they can house the HPC. And I've been fortunate to have traveled to some of these sites to witness some of the facilities they have in the north of Sweden in the Arctic Circle up there, just outside Boden. And so they have these facilities there. They have great access to power. It's a real technological hub up there. There's a lot of things going on apart from Bitcoin mining. You'd be surprised. I mean, if any of you ever play on your phone something called Candy Crush in the past, Candy Crush came from Sweden, came from this area that Hive are actually based in up there. It's, as I say, it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's like they have to really incentivize people to go there because the weather is challenging for the winter. So they bring these people, some from Stockholm, incentivize them up there, give them breaks in terms of providing them housing and accommodation, etc. Bring people in from other countries as well to try and grow that area. And they come up with these great ideas. Some of the biggest companies in Sweden are these tech companies that have been actually formulated in this area. So it's a great story. Hive play a big part in that space. They sponsor the ice hockey team there. I was fortunate to go to the stadium. I could see the sponsorship signs all around the stadium. Was met by many of the team that were practicing there, and it's just an awesome place. It's an awesome place for them, and it's great what they're doing with the local community. And it's not just Hive. Most of these mines that we talk about are doing exactly the same in their locations as well. IREN do it as well in British Columbia. They support local communities. They provide jobs for local communities, and they want to make sure that they give something back to those communities. And you can see the amount of teams that use that ice hockey stadium there. I'm not familiar with is it the Stanley Cup, Bryce?
In NHL in North America, Stanley Cup is the top
Yeah,
prize.
so there were, I think that part of the team in Bode, just outside this Bowden place, is that there's 3 Stanley Cup players. If that means something, I mean that to me that sounds like they've got some pedigree there of ice hockey players that they're passing on to the youngsters. They're part of the coaching setup there. So I was enthralled. We don't have ice hockey that much in the UK. We're mainly a football. I think in America they call it soccer, but it's really football. And it's a global sport, so we follow football. But ice hockey is played in the UK, but not to any major extent.
There you go. I remember when Anthony came back from that trip, he was so excited that the Hive logo was actually in the ice on the rink. And yeah, we do advertising like that as well. So no, interesting. But you bring up a great point, Anthony, that it's so important, these community partnerships, and especially in these remote locations, right? A lot of times Bitcoin miners go where the stranded power is, a lot of times being in a remote location. So when you can partner with the local communities, and it's really that symbiotic win-win relationship, just so much better for both sides. So a great example of that. Now, Bit Digital was the second interview we had yesterday. There was a lot of information in that one as well. They've come out with a number of press releases. Sam explained as to why they were working over the Christmas break, all of the big developments at the company. In terms of the production report, though, and he talked about this in the interview, the big number that jumps out is obviously their operational hash rate down to 1.8. Sam explained this is more of a blip in the radar. They expect to get back to 3 based on the transition, some of the movement, upgrading of miners' machines. This was an impact, obviously, to the operational hash rate.
Yeah, so we saw the hash rate drop by 1.8. They sold some S19s. They purchased some S21s to make the fleet that little bit more efficient. And so, yeah, hash rate came down to 1.8. They produced 32.4, which was about a 30% reduction on what they did in November. So that's not great. But he had some positive news on the Bitcoin mining and the fact that they're looking to grow to 3 exahash by the end of the year. So it's more of a more positive update on self-mining. Bear in mind, the last 12 months, the story behind Bit Digital has been the HPC growth. I mean, even as we talk today, we can talk about all these big contracts. We can talk about TeraWulf. We can talk about Hut 8. We can talk about Core Scientific, but nobody has delivered more in terms of HPC revenues than Bit Digital have in the last 12 months. And in January itself now, they're very, very close to 5 million or 60 million annualized. And listening to Sam on the podcast, that's imminently, going to be a lot higher. I mean, they had a target, and I think it was initially 100, then it was reduced to 92 million annualized revenue by the end of 2024. But bear in mind, when you're dealing with clients who want specifics in terms of GPUs, you're not just going to be able to, you can't just go down to local Costco and buy, $10 million dollars of GPUs. These have got to be ordered, and it's not going to happen overnight. And plus, you've got to make sure facilities are created and ready for that. They've been doing so much behind the scenes, and like Sam said, he hadn't stopped over Christmas, nor as a team. And they've got so much to show for it. He was very bullish. He was very frank as well on the podcast yesterday. He still can't understand why he's not getting the credit for this HPC. And to be honest with you, it baffles me as well. I mean, you look at the company, just talking about the treasury position for Bit Digital in terms of Bitcoin itself, $69 million of Bitcoin on the treasury, Ethereum 92 million. These are prices as at end of December, and as I said, the Bitcoin price is on a par with that. Cash and cash equivalents, 98.6 million of cash and cash equivalents. So that gives them a total of about $260 million of treasury. Now, this company had a market capitalization yesterday, of around about 450, just over 450 million. So when you take that into context and what the enterprise value is of this company, it just makes you it's just makes you think, why the market not giving it enough credibility? They are effectively, even if they did nothing else now, if they didn't grow their hash rate and kept their HPC as it is now, this is over $100 million of annualized revenue for this company. And the enterprise value, I think yesterday, was $232 million. I don't think many other companies can have that ratio of revenue to enterprise value in the same way that Bit Digital does. And he's really bullish. We're bullish because, you can tell from the conversation that you have with him, he just wants to get that message out there. He's even prepared. I mean, I was quite surprised, even prepared to spin off the Bitcoin mining business, and have two separate entities then, so that he can then get that proper recognition for the HPC. We've seen the likes of Hut, we've seen the likes of Core Scientific, the likes of TeraWulf. TeraWulf, their hash rate's hovering at 9.7 at the moment, but they've got a valuation of over 2 billion. That valuation's been given to them because of their HPC. They've just signed a contract with 60 megawatts. That's about, nearly just over 10% of the deal by that Core Scientific we've got on paper at the moment. But those companies have been given significant increases in their market capitalization based on the fact that they signed these big contracts. Bit Digital doesn't seem to have had the same sort of reaction from the market. Now, the one positive, again, thing that came out since January is they announced they're going to be domiciled now in the US from the 1st of January, and they've been following the SEC reporting for the last 6 months, so it wasn't a big big challenge for them to meet those requirements, but they've met those requirements. Actually, from my perspective as an accountant, I look forward to getting their first quarterly update reporting in, because I'll be able to easily track through and find the information quicker. Not that it's not there at the moment, but it just take a little bit more time. This non-US reporting schedule is a little bit more challenging to read in terms of the font size. So when I get to see this new one come out, it'll be laid out in such a way that I'll be able to fly through it like I do with many of the other US companies.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Might have to get you some reading glasses over there, Anthony. The old eyesight's going on you. But no, you bring up great points about Bit Digital. And for me, what's so intriguing is you say, hey, Bit Digital's not getting the same recognition, say, as Core Scientific for their deal. But at the same time, we also think Core Scientific is not getting the proper recognition. So that tells you how discounted some of these companies are, right? We talk to analysts. They say a lot of tech companies are trading at 20, 25 times earnings. They're giving these data centers even a 15 times earnings conservatively. Bitcoin is more like 5. And some of these companies like Bit Digital are just hardly even on the radar yet. So interesting to see. But as retail investors, you guys, that's where the opportunities are. That's exactly what we're looking for. Another company that we're looking at and looking forward to talking to soon here is Hut 8. We actually had Sue scheduled in this week. We wanted to get details about this project in Louisiana. We have started to hear more and more information online. So we've reached out to Hut 8. They don't yet have an official comment. We said, hey, just wait till we're able to get some color or context on that deal. So just some, I guess, reasons for the delay in the interview there. But in terms of the production update itself, Anthony, Hut 8, 89 Bitcoin, but like many of the others we've talked about, really diversifying now into other revenue opportunities.
You're quite right, Bryce. Hut 8 have been very silent on this topic at the moment, but reading local media reports from West Feliciana Parish, officials have now approved a zoning change to facilitate the construction of a 2.5 billion data center following a favourable vote from the Planning and Zoning Commission. The parish president noted that Hut 8's artificial intelligence data center will generate several hundred permanent jobs. And he also mentioned that Riley Trettole, who's the Senior Vice President of Data Center Development at Hut 8, has indicated that the center will be leased to an undisclosed tenant, which will procure the necessary computers and equipment for operation. So that's what we've heard at the moment. Nothing from Hut 8 themselves, but information is coming out slowly from other sources, and this was a source close to the area itself.
That's exactly right. Now, in terms of the production update here, Anthony, any numbers standing out on the Hut 8 board specifically?
In terms of their production, they haven't, I mean, we've talked about their hash rate since the start of, well, for the start of the last few years, actually. They haven't really increased hash rate at all. In fact, their efficiency, in a similar way to Bitdeer, is one of the lowest in the mining sector at the moment. They're at 31.7 joules a terahash. They did mine 89. They've started to improve the amount of Bitcoin they are mining with hash rate. So they're not having as many of the operational issues that they had a year ago. When you think about their sites in Canada, Drumheller, where they had, I think it was electrical fire issues there. And they've had other problems along the way. But this last 12 months, we've come to just over 12 months now since the merger. We've seen an improvement, and I've looked at the performance charts today in comparison to some of the miners. The last few months have actually been more positive. So with an average operational hash rate of 4.7, they were able to produce 18.9 Bitcoin per exahash. That puts them in, I think, the top 3 in terms of companies that have released their results up to now. We're only waiting for one more. So that's a vast improvement. If you look at the year-to-date position, Hut are actually at the lower end of the table. So this last few months they've started to improve that. So 2025 could be a better year. We know they're going to start increasing their self-mining hash rate. They've got some orders in there, plus some options for even bigger orders in there. They've got so many opportunities. Again, with the amount of power infrastructure we've got, and at the moment their current operational power available is about 1,322 megawatts, 1.3 gigawatts of power. So that's certainly more than the majority of peer miners around them. In terms of, I mean, the big thing about Hut 8 obviously is the size of the hodl. They've had a big hodl from literally 3 or 4 years ago when Jamie was the CEO, and I spoke to her, over 3 years ago and said, when are you going to sell? And she said, when the Bitcoin price gets to $500,000. And so that's how adamant they were about keeping that hodl, growing the hodl. Well, they're still growing the hodl now. They bought some Bitcoin. I think it was 990 Bitcoin in the month of December. Their hodl at the moment is over 10,171 Bitcoin. And as at the end of December, that had a valuation of $950 million. So $150 million just in HODL. That gives them a lot of opportunities in leveraging, in borrowing, to grow this company. They've got so much opportunities, especially with what we're hearing now from Louisiana with regards to this massive deal. I mean, Hut 8 highlighted the fact that that they've all but signed paperwork for 430 megawatts of hosting. That's going to be the second biggest deal out there behind the Core Scientific deal. And I'm assuming if their numbers are as good as Core Scientific, it's going to be an immense deal for them to have. That will certainly, when we see those numbers come through, you'd expect some valuation to be included in Hut's market capitalization. Yes, some of it's in there already, but when we start seeing the numbers come through, that might even increase further. So yeah, in terms of self-mining, it was as expected at the moment with their current fleet, only 4.7 exahash. It's again, it's one of the smallest amounts of self-mining, but this is a company that have over 13.2 exahash of managed services, 7.7 exahash of hosting services, and they've got a mining service at 4.7 as well. I think if you include the joint venture, it goes up to 5.5 exahash. So a significant amount of exahash altogether, close to, probably 26 exahash in terms of hash rate under management. It's a good business, and it's a growing business.
Yeah, it certainly is, and an A plus in terms of the school mark for Asher in his first year as CEO there. Now, moving along to Soluna, Anthony. This one, another company very active over the last few months in the AI space. So they've signed contracts now with Atlas Cloud, with San Francisco Compute, and on top of that, still managing to pull out a dozen Bitcoin in the month of December.
Yeah, I mean, these are one of the smaller miners. I mean, the market capitalization as we speak at the moment for Soluna is under $20 million, $18.7 million. Yes, they're producing, Bitcoin, 672 petahash. So they haven't really grown the Bitcoin position this year. It's been hovering between that sort of 600 and 800 petahash. They do have a bigger hosting business. So the hosting business is more than twice the size of the self-mining business. That's at 762. And we know from their business segments that they are profitable in all these areas. Their efficiency is, it's an average efficiency, 26 joules a terahash. A year ago, this would have been, a good efficiency, but now we're seeing miners buy the latest machines and get well under the 20 exahash. So 26 is average. Compared to Bitdeer and Hut 8, which are over 30, it's certainly an average of where they are. They do sell their Bitcoin on a daily basis, so they'll have sold all the 12 Bitcoin during the month of December. And in terms of, production per exahash, 17.9, that puts them at sort of like mid-table across all the miners there. So, not the top operator. And in terms of, December and for the month of, and for the year of 2024, I think Bitfarms are going to take that title away from Hive. Hive had it in November. Bitfarms have regained the top spot in December and took the year to date top spot as well by the smallest of fractions. And the top five, there was literally a very very small, less than 1% difference between the top five, which actually proves that these mining companies can. They should be producing the same amount of Bitcoin with the hash rate that they have. And that shows you the consistency in 2024 that we didn't necessarily see in previous years. But again, Soluna, you've got to remember they do far more than self-mining. Self-mining is, again, it's a fraction of the company. They have this hosting business that's big. They're moving into HPC. They have a project, a model projects at the moment, just a few megawatts that they're doing there, and they're using that project as lessons learned to then drive out further, more deals. And you can see, they've signed this deal with Atlas Cloud, they've signed with the San Francisco Compute Company. They also managed to complete the final conversion and payoff of the convertible notes. And they've arranged, some financing for their AI as well, in partnership with Ginga, which offers, flexible financing for all the AI enterprises. So it's been an excellent, year for Soluna. Yes, the market capitalization and share price looking a bit worn at the end of the year. I mean, it had reached $8 during the year. Down to, about $2.50 by the end of the year. So, plenty of potential upward movement on there. And as we see some of these other projects like Project Dorothy 2, 48 megawatt Bitcoin hosting. Now the substation there is complete. And so now they can start, the phase one construction, which will be the first 16 megawatts. They've got Project Grace, they've got Project Ada. So they're just constantly, doing these smaller projects, but these smaller projects are starting to get bigger. Project Catty, where they're going out now requesting quotes for long lead electrical infrastructure, and that can take up to 12 months. That's 166 megawatts, and that'll be used for Bitcoin hosting and AI. So, I think there's a lot more to Soluna than just the self-mining, obviously. People need to do a lot more research in that area. We've had John on the podcast many times in 2024. We've got him coming on the podcast next week, and we look forward to getting his up-to-date expectations for 2025 on all these various projects when we discuss that with him.
Yeah, you bet. We actually have Hive and Soluna scheduled for their interviews next week. Now, final piece of news here, Anthony. You basically forecasted this in yesterday's podcast, saying that this press release was imminent or coming right away. CleanSpark now coming out confirming they've surpassed that monumental milestone of 10,000 Bitcoin on balance sheet.
Yeah, they came out with an update today. It's 10,097 as at January the 9th. It was anticipated. They have really hodled the majority this year. They've sold very little. I mean, most of the months it's been 2 or 3 Bitcoin, which is really going out to some of the senior directors of the company as part of their remuneration package. I think they sold just over 12.5 Bitcoin in the month of December, but they had they were talking big totals every month. They've really grown it. They've achieved this 10,000 really, really quickly. Next month they'll surpass HUT because obviously the hash rate that CleanSpark have got, over 39 exahash now. So they're only 11 away from 50, which is their sort of mid-year target. That will be expected to be achieved before the middle of the year, I would expect. And, they'll achieve, if they achieve anywhere like the Bitcoin they mined in December, they'll be up to 4th place. Riot are in 3rd place. Riot have got well over 17,000 Bitcoin. So that might take a lot longer to catch up. And if CleanSpark, don't purchase any Bitcoin, that would take a number of years because Riot are also now getting to the business end of their hash rate. They're achieving close to 30 exahash of operational hash rate. They've got targets to get to 50 and above 50. And so really, the race for those top miners is gathering momentum. But 10,000 is a great target to achieve, and yeah, it was predicted, but it wasn't it didn't take much calculating to work out that it would just be early in January when they'd be releasing that update.
Fair enough. It still took a little predicting, and that's why we keep you around, Anthony. Hey, it's been a very eventful week to kick off the new year here. It was kind of nice the market was closed today just to get a bit of a catch-up day. We have obviously our power play segment scheduled tomorrow. Another thing important tomorrow, you guys, the final day to sign up for Miner Madness 2.0. So this competition has been gaining momentum, Anthony, throughout the last few days here. We announced it about 2 weeks ago, but a lot of people were really waiting for these final days to submit their pick. So we will be taking closing price as of tomorrow. And then the event itself, Miner Madness 2.0, kicking off on Monday the 13th. So should be a very exciting quarter of trading in the Bitcoin mining space. With that in mind, you guys, let us know in the comment section below, how are you feeling right now about the miners, about the price of Bitcoin, and your outlook for 2025? Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.